Okay, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Carrie McEwen. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for GrayMatter, and we are really excited to speak with you today about your digital journey. First of all, I want to say we want to add value in this conversation. So if you have a quick question or something that pops up for you as we're talking, please just put it in the chat box and we can either ask it directly to John if we have time today, or we can get back to you on that later. I also wanted to add that we are going to make this on demand available so you can share with others at your companies. We've got a lot of great people and great companies on today, so I really appreciate your time, and just know this is a conversation. So jump in with what you have, questions on your journey that you need to have answered. We are really lucky today, and I'll tell you why, because we have John Benitz, who is our Director of Professional Services here at GrayMatter. And if you know John, or if you don't know John, he is a star in this industry, and he is a real special person to be leading this seminar for us today. He takes some of the biggest companies through digital journeys. He also helps companies get started, if they haven't yet, on their digital journeys. So a little bit about John. He's a graduate of the University of Pittsburgh with a degree, a master's in science of electrical engineering, and he also has a bachelor's of science in computer science from the University of Massachusetts. But John is in charge of a lot of things here. He leads our professional services team, and he really helps you make the right decisions on your digital journey. So John, I'm going to let you take it away with all the great insight that you have today.
Well, thank you, Carrie, and thank you everyone else for joining us today. So I know it's, just first thing in the afternoon, right after lunch, so everybody get kind of excited, stir in your seats. We're going to go through this journey together. So this is the first in a series of 3. We're demystifying the digital industry journey. So I just want to kind of go through some reality facts with you. By 2020, there's going to be more than 38 billion connected devices in the Internet of Things. It's a rise of 285% from 2015. Soon, almost everything that we deal with today will be connected to the Internet in some manner. So giant leaps are happening out there. Every appliance, vehicle, from your toaster to your nightstand clock to your washing machine, dryer, your manufacturing processes, everything is going to be communicating and giving information. So how do we make one? So it's not just one leap, it's a series of small leaps. This is really a theme that we want to make sure that we get across to everyone during this session, is that, looking into the historical leaps in the past and looking at where we need to move today, we all learned early in our years that you have to walk before we can run. And you have to pack and plan before we go on a 3-month road trip. No one's just going to jump in a car and start driving. Well, we got to take that same feeling and that same atmosphere and thought process to what we're doing in our plants today. So one of the things I wanted to talk about too, about this whole transformation into the digital leap, is this applies to manufacturing, to water, wastewater, power production, petrochem, chemical processes. Whether you're a continuous process, whether you're batch processing, the information we're going to share with you today is going to affect you. So, what's your transformation purpose? Should be the first question in your head right now. Why are we doing this? What's holding us back? Well, first thing is probably no purpose. It's the same thing that's holding the factory back from transformation. We need a purpose. So let's kind of go back to that planning a trip. So if I'm going to plan a trip, why am I going? What do I want to do when I get there? Then some environmental things. What is the weather going to be like? Do I need to bring a heavy coat? Do I need to bring a bathing suit? What do I need to bring along with me? Am I just hanging out at the beach? Am I going to go to a really nice restaurant? All these things cause us to have to plan differently and prepare for those. So take a step back. You don't just act. You're taking a leap too fast. So in our plant's processes, we go out and say, well, let's just connect all of our machines. Let's get all the information that's available. How fast do we need to get it? Absolutely, as fast as we possibly can.
And John, you were saying this is what you hear from people all the time in the field. This is the mistake. Let's just go.
Oh, absolutely, Carrie. What I hear is, oh, I got 50 machines out there. Let's just connect them all. And the first question we're asking is, okay, what do you need from them? Everything they got. Let's just do it. And then what happens is you get all of this information and you really realize there's only a few key parameters that I really need. So now it's much more difficult to clean out all of that than it is to just do it right the first time. So we want to design the architecture before we design the plan. Really? That's kind of like building a house. Let's build the bathroom first because we need it, but we haven't put in the foundation, the basement, or anything else. So vision before action. Don't just act. So you want to have a vision, you want to plan for how you're going to accomplish that vision, and then begin moving towards it. So what data do I need? It's a great question, good place to begin. So define the type of information that you want. So what are we looking at doing? Are we looking at downtime? Are we looking at efficiency? Are we looking at genealogy? Are we looking at information that needs to move from machine to machine? Maybe this machine requiring parts and components from some other process, and it needs to be where I am when I'm ready to use it. So that's the beginning of the philosophy of thinking through your journey. So decide where immediate action is needed. So here's my information that I have available to me. I need to know, what am I going to do with this information when I get it? Then we have to categorize the information. So what am I going to do for improvement? Is this an operational issue? Is it a process issue? Is it a machine issue? Is it a downtime? Is it a lag? What is the information? We need to categorize it so we know what kind of actions and who's the audience that's going to take action. So how do I get it? Communications architecture. So we got to connect machines. So we want to look at the communication systems that's available, how different machines talk, come out with a common format of it. So Carrie, it wasn't too long ago that I had a client, within the last couple of weeks, that came to me and said, I have a whole bunch of serial devices. So this is how we're talking to him now, so we can continue to do that. Well, the questions that we asked were, how much data do you need? How often do you need it? We don't want to come in and change your entire architecture just to change the architecture, but we need to understand what it is you need to do and how quickly do you need to respond. It might require a change to be able to get information faster, or it might just be that you have the information available, even though it's slow, it's coming to you quick enough. So that's another one of those examples of, let's just not jump in there and do something for the sake of doing it. Let's make sure we're planning that so we're doing it right.
And you can move fast with the process you have. It's not trying to slow it down for people. It's just saying, let's take the step back.
Oh, absolutely. So now that we're getting machines connected, what do we need? Data quantity, frequency. How long do we need to keep the data? How do we distribute the data? Who needs it? What do I do about it? Now that I got this data, what are we going to do? We don't want to just collect data to have a bunch of data in the storage. It's almost like having this big, massive library and nobody ever read the book. So who needs this data? Well, different departments, different people, different services, whether they're maintenance, whether they're quality people, whether they're production people, they're all going to look at this data and want different data for different purposes. So who needs the data? Who's going to react to this data? Who's going to do something about it? When and how do you want to make improvements based on that information? You want to make improvements that's going to keep your process moving and keep it quick. You don't want to say, oh, all of a sudden, I think I need to stop this machine and do all this improvement to it to see if it's going to work. No, you want to plan that, use the information, begin to be able to use predictive reactions. Use the intelligence of the information that you're getting using twin thread, analytics, all of this other software and capability that comes along with having your machines connected and having the right data at the right place to be able to make those kind of decisions. So machines or processes, this is all part of that intelligent learning. We want to be able to do analytics. We want to do continuous improvement. We want the machines and our audience who's using this data to learn from what's going on. So putting the system in, we've put several of these systems in. They're all at different stages right now. A lot of people want to do this, so we're moving through. We're seeing this improvement at different stages. One of the big examples was we found that a manufacturing process such as 3D printing, it takes a long period of time to be able to print that component. But by analyzing the equipment, the machine, its capabilities, its normal operating parameters, if it had a fault during the first 10 minutes of operation, and this operation takes 8 hours to complete, if we waited till it totally completed, they pulled the component, started through its checks, and found that the component has failed, so they have to discard it. But we could have told them by looking at the data that it occurred 10 minutes in. We could have stopped the process then, scrapped the component at that time, started again, instead of using and wasting all of that time. That's just one of many examples of using the data, the right analytics, and the right audience to make corrective actions based on the information. Some of the big mistakes that we've seen out there. So I'm going to give you an example of 3 of those as we move forward. Well, the first one is starting with the machine gives us, not looking at what we really need. So I had a company to go out and says, connect my machines, give me every piece of data that it has. So these particular machines were CNC machines. They happen to give us 1,000 points of data. In doing some research on the data, several of the points really weren't connected to nothing. They were points that were just available on the table that they either were going to connect up or was connected at one time or another, but they were really just totally dead data. And then as we looked through the data, there were some data that really didn't matter. You know, it's kind of like driving down the road. I don't need to count how many reflectors is in that middle of the road. I just need to know that they're there to help me when it's foggy, not to cross it. I don't need to know how many they're there. So this machine is giving us a whole lot of information. So out of those 1,000 points, it was determined that 7 points were critical to knowing exactly how that machine functioned. And that's the only 7 points we need. Now you think, well, let's just get them all and then get rid of them. Well, in getting rid of them, now I have to delete a bunch of tags. I have to clean up a bunch of things. I don't know if you know, talking to the group out there, I don't know if you've ever done this, but getting more than you need and then getting rid of it is much more difficult than just planning on what I need and just get what I need first. Another example is not knowing what you can act on. So I'm going to give you a process example for this one. We're looking at a Marcellus shale on a platform drilling for oil and gas. They tell us that there's a valve, and this valve needs to close. When we get this alarm, this valve needs to close. So we say, okay, fine. How quickly does it need to close? Within 3 seconds. I want you to alarm the operator, and he needs to close this valve. That's a total impossibility. If the operator was actually standing on the platform with his hands on the wheel and the alarm went off, it would take him longer than 3 seconds to spin the wheel to actually close the valve. So in reality, this should have been automated. It also should have backup. It's not an alarm. So not knowing what you can act on, when you should act on it, or whether it should be automated is a critical step. And a lot of people make the mistake of either giving way too much information or too little information. The third one is keeping data for the wrong length of time. We had an example of a furnace. Thermocouples change about once a second. If it's really, really good, we may get it a half a second scan where you'll see an actual change in the temperature value. They wanted to scan it at a millisecond. So I am scanning this thermocouple so quickly, I basically see step changes. So to give a prime example of that, we actually pulled a thermocouple, took a lighter, put the lighter underneath the thermocouple, and so showed them the step changes. So you are collecting all of this data, and most of it isn't really telling you anything because it doesn't react that fast. So collecting the data at the speed that's critical for you to capture information at the right speed. And then length of time. Do I need to keep the data forever? Do I need to keep it for a certain run? Do I need to take a large amount of data and then concentrate that data into the critical elements for a report to keep long-term? So data is critical to everything that we do, but not only is it critical to make sure we're getting it correctly, it's also critical that we make sure that we're scanning it correctly and keeping it for the length of time that we really need it.
I see a couple of you with your hands up. If you have a question for John, just make sure to put in the chat box and we will get that to him. And let us know what's on your mind as he's talking and going through so many good examples in every industry. Please just put it in the chat box and we will get to you. Thanks. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
All right, very good. All right, so from the field, some customer struggles that we've seen. So what worked well? Well, creating uniform data structure. So we want to create commonality. So what we're saying there is there's two types of commonality. There is making sure that my data that I'm collecting, whether it's alarming data, key indicator data, downtime data, quality data, is in the same format, same naming convention for every device that we're bringing in. That way, when I'm programming my end control system to bring me that device, and then I am storing it, then I'm going to run analytics with it. I'm going to also put it on a dashboard. I'm going to put it on reports. I can build each of these items very easily because my tag naming is common and uniform, so it's intuitive. I don't have to go figure out where this particular point is, what is it called on this system versus this system. The next thing for that is I have multiple pieces of equipment that are very similar. You can buy two pieces of equipment at the exact same time and there's going to be slight differences. But if we make the design similar, it's very easy to roll out multiples because we've planned it, we've designed it, and we have in mind that we're going to take advantage of rolling out these multiples. So what else didn't work? Well, not planning. Everyone wants to hit the ground running. We need to show value. Well, value is doing it right the first time and making sure that you can build on it. You know, it's kind of like being inside a wall, and I'm building a house inside the room with a wall, and I put up all the studs, I put up all of my drywall, and I have perfect seams. There's not a ripple in it. But I forgot the door. Now I got the perfect room, but I can't get out of it. Well, not planning is that same thing. If we don't plan, then we're building something that won't grow with us, won't change, won't scale, it's not flexible, and we end up down roadblocks and dead ends. And then we have to pull back, and that takes time to get there, and it takes time to return before we can head down the next path. Overloading the network. When we go out there and just grab every piece of data that we possibly can get, we're really stressing the networks for data that we don't need. Not looking at communications in the right way. Either going in and making everything Ethernet that you may not have to, or not knowing that you have different communications paths. You jumped in, you're starting to connect machines. Now all of a sudden, oh, I got Profibus. Oh, I didn't consider Profibus, so now I got to do something to be able to get that. So plan first. And then picking which equipment needs to be connected. Not all equipment needs to be connected. Some can be communicated with very easily. Some you may have to add additional I/O, additional sensors to be able to get the correct information out. You also want to prioritize what it is you're doing. Go after the high priorities. Also, while you're going through that and you're evaluating during your planning, if you have like machines, set them all up to be done at once. Take advantage of the lessons learned from that machine and distribute it across everything that you have before you move to the next type. There's some information, but not enough. Some things happen and people are alerted to them, some things don't happen. So it's kind of making sure that information is flowing, the right information to the right audience. Not everyone needs to see everything that's coming out of the digital environment, but we want to make sure that the audience who needs the data is getting the data.
And again, these are some of the pieces that you get from the field, some of the quotes that people say to you. It's almost like there's these pockets of crisis, right?
Yes. Let's use a real example. I walk into a control room, the operator's telling me there's a bunch of information on the screen that I never look at. And next to him, the maintenance guy goes, well, that's for me. I need to know this kind of information to understand the maintenance and the preventive maintenance aspects of the machine. Well, the operator's like, well, I don't need to know that to run the machine. And then here comes along the manager, and he looks at the screen going, how do I know what's running? I want to know that all my machines are running and which ones aren't. Well, the operator says, well, you can go to these different screens and I can show you that. He looks at me and says, can we not just have one screen? I just want one screen. But if I gave him just one screen that had a bunch of green and red lights, he's going to be very happy. The operator will look at me and go, what does this tell me? Nothing. It doesn't tell me what I need. So the audience is very important to your plan of what data you're getting and how you're conveying that information. So a case study, GE Transportation, lots and lots and lots of train engines all over the world. So how did we get started? Well, we got a few critical machines connected. So we did a proof of concept and got 20 machines connected. We started looking at what we connected. Are we getting the right information? What are we going to do with the information? Talking to our audience that was in the part of the planning stage, saying, is this what you're expecting? Is this the right information? We got a corrective action saying, yeah, this is getting there, but we need this, and how about doing this? So once we get that information, then we rolled it out to 427 machines, and we created a brilliant factory. Now we have a brilliant, Hit the wrong button. We have a brilliant factory. So what's the next step that we want to do? We don't want to just stop there. We want to start adding cloud. We want to move information to the cloud, because not only are we manufacturing engines in Grove City, they're doing it in Erie. They're doing it in Las Vegas. They're doing it in Brazil. We need to share our information so that when we find something, they can learn from it. When they find something, we can learn from it. So how do we do that? Well, we start to add cloud. Then, now that we have that information, we have brain power. We have analytics. We have predicts. We can create digital models. We can execute based on what-if analysis. Look at this data and start to say, okay, now, if we increase the speed of the CNC machine, we start getting more material ready and staged prior to moving this piece of equipment. We can move this factory along better, faster, more reliable, less downtime, less waiting. We take all that information together, and that is what a brilliant factory is that's on a digital journey. So let's talk about that digital journey. Well, we have Google Maps. How many people out there, before cell phones, before all this technology, grabbed that little map that was folded so cool, unfolded it in your car to figure out where you were, and then try to figure out where you're going to go, then try to fold it up so that you had enough visible to be able to get you there. Then by the time you got there, you tried to put that thing away, and nobody could figure out, how do I fold this thing back into the little thing that it used to be? Well, nobody does that anymore. I take my cell phone and type in where I want to go. It tells me how do I want to get there, what's in my way. And I don't know how many people have used Waze, but Waze will even tell me if there's roadkill. It'll tell me if there's somebody stuck on the side of the road, if there's a cop up ahead, if that traffic light has monitors on it. People are sharing information, telling everybody what's going on. So that same environment is occurring in the plant. We got efficiency analyzer, we got connected machines, we have digital technology that's telling us everything that's going on around us. We just have to have the vision and the plan to do something with it. So I hope I whet everyone's tonsils, made everyone excited, can't wait to build on this digital journey. So next step, let's start planning and moving forward in the digital journey. So the next in our series is going to be, now that we have that plan, we need to put it into action. So I'm going to pass it back to Carrie and team to see if we have any questions.
We do, yeah, we have a couple minutes left. We don't want to keep you too long, but if you want to stick around for John to answer a few questions. A couple of them are similar, so I'm going to rephrase it a little, and it's surrounding, do you have to jump to the cloud first in the order of what you're doing, since there's such pressure right now for cloud and get there? Is that important first, or how do you work through that?
It's absolutely non-important first. Cloud is a very great piece of the technology palette that we have in the digital journey, but it's not something you want to do first. And it may be something you don't want to do ever. The cloud is just a method to be able to share information that's not directly connected to where you are. But you want to take that journey one step at a time, just like we're planning anything else. So you want to make sure everything in your plant is absolutely perfect, and you are taking advantage of the digital journey before you go up to the cloud to share it to someone else.
Another question deals with, is there a too small? Do you have to have a certain number of machines to make this effective? What's your gauge on that?
Oh, nothing's too small and nothing's too big. The plan is to take what you have and then digitize, create that vision, learn from it, get information from it, and improve it, whether it's one machine or whether it's thousands of machines. Whether the machine develops something, you have to actually physically pick it up, carry it, move it over to the next one, or if there's super intelligent conveying systems that has RFID tags and other kind of information that's moving everything around. We can start really small, and if you're small, you can get benefit from it. If you're really large, plan your journey. Take one step at a time.
And what does it look like team-wise when you come in and start the projects? How many people do you have to designate? What's that first week or so look like, John, so people get a sense of that?
Our best experience has been to do an assessment. We work with the team in all of the representatives of the audience for information. So we go in, sit down with the group, and then we go into details with each area to determine what their desires are, what do they want to accomplish, what is the benefit of this for them. Once we do all that, we compile that together, we share it as a team so they can see their vision and understand what each department needs from this process, and then help them create a roadmap and a plan to move that forward.
Okay, cool. So John is a super busy guy in our organization, so thank you, John, for taking a minute to walk people through part of this. But I do want to let everyone know that it's just the beginning. We're going to be digging into John's process and getting more insight from him on a regular basis. So you're going to be getting a quick poll of where you are in your process and what you need to know. We will take one more quick question, John. What about cybersecurity? Because we've addressed this separately, but someone has another urgent question about, talk about that a little bit through your vision.
The digital journey, the tools, our methods, the networking, the separation and segmentation of networking, all follow cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is the same as planning everything that you're doing within your process. So it works hand in hand with this process. So cybersecurity is an important element of it, but it's kind of a separate path.
Great. Okay, it's 3:02, so we don't want to take too much more of your time, but John can also be in touch if you have further questions. Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much for your attention for this, and let us know what's on your mind for next time. We will cater the seminar to specifically what you're in need of and where you are on your digital transformation. Thanks, everybody.